Okay, hey there, and this is Confidence Nyirenda back again with another episode. And this one is a special edition as we are having a conversation with a brilliant startup founder from Tigere. And in a moment, he will introduce himself. But again, this is a way to shine some light on some wonderful startups that are coming from the African continent and that are implementing their solutions using technology, especially blockchain. And we just want to hear what these guys are up to and the wonderful technology that they are building. So, welcome to the Africa channel. We've had conversations before, and we spoke about the wonderful stuff that you're doing, and we're just gonna go through it. And I just want to say again, thank you for joining me and finding some time to speak to me. I understand. In which place are you right now?
So currently I'm in Amsterdam, and thanks for having me on the show. But currently I'm in Amsterdam. We're in an accelerator program called Startup Bootcamp. So we made it in out of 3,700 applicants. We're the only African startup in the program, or the only African-based startup in the program. So yeah.
Wow. That's great. So let's just go ahead and introduce yourself. Who is
Yeah.
Vusa? And what are you currently working on?
So, I'm Vusa, born and bred Zimbabwe, raised in Zimbabwe, still live there as well. So I am a two-time founder of SMEs, and of an SME, two SMEs in Zimbabwe. And during that time, one of them is a construction company. And during that time is when I stumbled upon the problem, which we're now solving today with my partner. We were building houses for banks locally in Harare and in Zimbabwe, and realizing that we couldn't onboard people for mortgages. So I was like, okay, well, this is interesting. And so for like 2 years, I kept trying to, wrap my head around why are we failing to help people with this issue? Why are people failing to be onboarded? And they could be onboarded because they didn't have pay slips. And so, that became kind of part of my passion. Housing has always been a passion and thing close to my heart. I've always tried to figure out why is housing a difficult thing to do all over the world, especially in emerging economies. And I feel there's a lot of, coming out of a good home means you have dignity, So it's always been dear to my heart. That's why I describe it where I describe myself. So when I stumbled upon that problem, that's when I really dug deep into it and realized the issue was actually connecting the finances with the people who are credit worthy and getting them to understand the general Zimbabwean worker, the person who works every day, whether they're trading, whether it's working Mabero and selling them in Zim or whatever it is that they're doing, they're a car salesperson, all these individuals we just don't capture, who also need housing. So yeah, that's in a nutshell, that's what made us start together. That's what is me right now as it stands. So, you asked me who is Vusan? That's me, growing up in Zim and passionate about housing and solving solutions.
Wow, that's wonderful. And it just made me think about how different the Zimbabwean economy is. In a way, it's not really mostly formal. So it's difficult for an individual to access, financial services when you don't have a split pay slip. I think I would say probably, I think 70 or 75% of the population, most of them are in the informal sector. So then it becomes very difficult for them to track. So that's wonderful, what you are doing there. So my first question to you concerning Tigere, so without technology at all, what is your business?
So without any tech at all, and thanks for that question, because at its core, what we are, we're a connector. We're a connector and a company that's helping people without pay slips gain access to credit. So we will find someone in the informal sector, part of that 75% you're talking about in Zimbabwe. We will pre-vet them, and we can do this offline as well. We do it online, so it's faster, so we're tech enabled. We can do it offline, pre-vet them, and then introduce them to banks and microfinance institutions that are willing to give that person a loan, but they don't know them. And then from there, we will connect them to a hardware store that will give them a purpose-driven loan, a material loan to draw down bricks or cement. So we are that connector. We imagine us being that person who takes your hand and walks you through all those steps and gets you financially included. So without tech, it would be me walking around with a clipboard and testing people all over the country. But the reality of it is we can do it without tech.
Wow. That's awesome. That's awesome to hear. So I also visited your site and tried to create a new account, and there is a couple of questions that I was asked. And so what's the relationship between the questions, the questions that I get asked with my level of, I don't know, like the risk that I have with the relation to whoever was going to provide the financial assistance?
Okay, so I'll answer this in two ways. So first, I'll describe that we use a psychometric analysis tool merged with a traditional financial tool to be able to generate credit scores for people to onboard them for the finance I'm talking about. So when confidence asked me, what's the relation? So the questions we ask you for the psychometric. So a psychometric, for those who don't know, it's a psychological assessment. And ours in particular is looking at capabilities of someone to pay and someone's willingness to pay. So in terms of relationships, so we've got different weightings of different questions in the background. We're trying to see your personal responsibility, your ambition, your financial literacy, and they all have different weights. And we'll ask the same question like 3 different times and you won't be able to tell. So it's hard also for you to game the question. And so, but what's funny about it is a lot of the questions, for example, will ask you something that you might think is, the obvious answer is X when it's actually Y, or the best answer is actually Y. So yeah.
Yeah, and I actually noticed that they are really tricky questions. I was trying to guess like what really is the purpose of this, of me going through that, and it's really interesting to see. So I don't know, like there are also chances of somebody lying. So does it still like encompass those kind of scenarios? Like, can you really tell that somebody was lying in this situation?
So, we actually, funny enough, we can. I would say there's a pretty high success rate of us picking up an individual who's lying and an individual who's not. But,
Okay.
look, like any test, it has to keep evolving. So our test is a living test. So, the test you did today, within a couple of days will be a different one. And we're trying to iterate that to be even faster. So it changes almost every other hour, other second or minute. So to make sure that people can't game it. But yes, we can pick up someone who's lying.
Oh, so what you mean is, okay, I've discovered that you're going to ask me questions. I create a fake account to first see the questions, then I can come and answer them. So they are always changing. So like you
Yeah.
can't always get the same questions. Wow.
Yes.
That's awesome. And guys, if you're watching this, I encourage you to go and try it out. Like for me, it really felt like I was sitting in a class, and like the questions were really tricky, and I had to figure out like, okay, so now getting to understand it from you, it's really interesting. But anyway, I'll go to my second question. So I know you explained in your introduction that you have a passion for housing, but then I'll just go ahead and ask you if there are any other reasons why you chose financing housing loans besides any other like products that you could build. Like why finance or loans?
Yeah. So, apart from my deep passion for it, we realized also that when it comes to housing, it's something also that our clients care about the most. If we are offering people, vehicle finance loans or cell phone loans, anything like that, the default rate will be anticipated to be much higher. And also, we think those are non-productive loans. So we don't want to put you in a position that you end up in debt and struggle to pay and you're unhappy with the project at the end of the day, but rather to actually give you something that you're going to build your legacy on. So we believe that, financial inclusion actually begins with a home. And so we are expecting lower default rates through housing. We're also doing something that we know people really care about. It's also part of a way of pre-vetting. We're not going to have an 18-year-old applying for our loans. Well, we don't think so. So far, we haven't. And that's simply because they don't have a stand yet. They're not in building mode, but most of our clientele is coming from people with small families or young self-employed individuals who have got a bit of income. So it's also almost a pre-vetting process on its own. Only serious people are going to come to us when they want to build a house.
Wow, that's interesting. And I was speaking to one of the guys that I follow in the blockchain space when he came to Zimbabwe, and he was speaking about how Africans really see how important it is to own a house, because like when you make it, even when you have money, the first thing that you want to secure is a place where you can live, so that if everything goes wrong, at least you have somewhere to sleep, and like so I think there is a huge market that you are going to be covering, and that sounds really interesting. And you are using blockchain technology.
Yeah.
So why blockchain? Why are you, and how does it help in the process?
Okay, so let me walk you through how we use it and why. So how we use blockchain is we actually then upload those credit scores and that loan transaction history from a person on our platform onto the chain. And I'm sure your listeners are familiar with blockchain, so I won't explain what it is, but basically, because so that we secure your information there, so that I can't tamper with, so that you can't tamper with it, so you can't call me and say, can you do me a favor and fix it? No, it's on chain. There's nothing I can change. If you default, it's on the public ledger, so people can see you've defaulted. And so that's why we chose to put this on blockchain, so that it's not an Excel sheet that can be tampered with, number one. Number two, so that the bigger picture of it is it can then travel the whole world. We want you to be able to travel with your credit score to other countries once we gain more and more traction and grow. And the best way to do it is to say, look, this is secure. This is not a made up credit score. This is actually my history. Everyone can see it. So, yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. So that means if I decide today to move to another country, say Ghana, I can then just produce my credit score and I can access some financial services from that country.
That's correct.
That's beautiful, man. That's beautiful. So what do you think about tech in Africa? Do you think it can really solve African problems today?
I really think it can. A lot of the ways in which we operate in Africa is just inefficient, to be honest. That statistic, 75% of our people are informal. So we know that they're informal, but our systems are not trying to understand them. And the reason, or let me not say they're not trying to, even if they are, they don't know how to reach that many people. So technology allows us to gamify and to really scale any models that we have to get more and more people on board. So we look at ourselves as we're a marketplace for credit and housing finance. That's what we are, essentially. And technology allows us to create that table where all the stakeholders come and communicate and link with each other. And we are also a credit scoring app. And again, technology allows us to reach more and more people. So I think tech is really the way to kind of go through the inefficiencies, to rid our markets of the inefficiencies they have and get us to scale. I mean, we've got a large population, and the only way we can reach everyone and get everyone involved and grow the economic potential of Africa is through that, and not through day-to-day physical trade like this is 1945. We actually have to look at things in a different way. And that's also how you can tap into the general African consumer. Who's as rural as they can get or local, because technology is in different varying scales. Here we are talking about blockchain, but my company is hoping to even have USSID for this kind of thing to work, USSD to work, even for someone on what you call a dumb phone. So it's technology is really our savior, if you ask me.
So how do you deal currently with the regulatory space? Speaking of Africa right now, most of the African governments are very skeptical especially to when you start speaking of blockchain. The first thing they might want to scream is the word scam, right? So, like, how are you doing dealing with that space at the moment?
So, I didn't get mentioned, but I have a legal background myself. So my first degree is a law degree, and so and most people in the blockchain space, or dare I say crypto space, are afraid of the either afraid or are anti government or any sort of centralized system, which is, I think, it's incorrect. I think you have to meet and educate with the regulator. So since day one, when we started our company, and we've got other blockchain products we want to onboard in different phases down the road. And so we've been talking to, the central bank and talking to the SEC locally to get them to understand what we're doing and the basis of why we're doing it. And so from a regulatory perspective, you'd find that, I'm sure you know Uhuru and other companies have managed to get sandboxes and things of that nature. You'd also know Flex ID and his constant conversations with the regulator. So I think as Zimbabweans, we've learned from the past that it's better to approach the regulator and deal with them. And so what we're doing specifically also when it comes to lending and things of that nature, we're actually not the lender, right? We're the connector. So we're going through partnerships with our local banks and microfinance institutions. They're actually helping us with those regulatory hurdles, which is what I would suggest any startup founder to do as best as possible, is to partner with an institution that already has the regulatory approval. Because if you don't, then you won't be a startup. You will literally be waiting to launch for 5, 6, 7 years, just trying to get those things to roll. But if you partner at that curve and you are quick to do your proof of concept and pilot, and then you can start working on your own licensing from there. So that's how we're going about it today.
Oh, that's a brilliant plan, and like I also agree with you when you speak about like most of the startups being anti-government or anti-regulation. I think that is one of the biggest mistakes that were made by the should we say Bitcoin community and blockchain community at large, like thinking that they have to go anti-government instead of working with them to better people's lives, instead of just saying we are anti-government, which is something that will make it really difficult for us to get to a point where the technology is being seen in full force. So yes, I do agree with you. And I once spoke with another startup founder. I don't know if you know him, Tawanda Kembo. And I asked him his view on that, and he is one person who really articulated it in a way that I liked it. Like, as much as money has evolved within the past centuries, there is no single point where a single form of trading was replaced. Speak of barter trading, it's still in existence, although we already have currencies, we already have things like cards and everything where you can just buy. But in some certain communities, even if you have a Visa card, you might not access some type of goods unless maybe you have something that person wants, and then you can barter trade. And he also spoke about in jail, even if you have 100 bills, you will not be able to get what you want. But if you have some tobacco or if you have some cigarettes, then you are the king in jail. So, like, all these forms of money will coexist together rather than having all of the monetary systems being replaced by blockchain only. So I agree with you, and you have a point there, and it's a very great advice that you give to startup founders to work with companies that are or institutions that are already regulated, to make it easier for them to get started. Okay, so on to my next question. What do you think about accelerator programs? You mentioned that you are already participating in one, and I also saw you participated in the African Blockchain Institute accelerator program also. It was an incubation, right? So what do you think about those things? Do those things help startups?
Yes, so I would say personally, the incubator we're part of, African Blockchain Institute, was really helpful in us developing blockchain, understanding that technology, and knowing how we can truly harness its power. So, one thing as a startup founder, you have to humble yourself and realize you need help. You can have a great idea, but not be able to execute it without people who understand. So from ABI, I think that was helpful. And then, what we're part of now, which is called Startup Bootcamp Amsterdam, has been really helpful. Since we joined the actual incubator, we've even pivoted our business. We've moved to B2B, to C. We understand so much more about just how startups iterate and grow. And so you'd find that these accelerators, apart from, and also you want to get money from them, right? Accelerators give you that visibility. Some of them actually give you money up front as an investment, and also they give you access to angel investors and more investors in different ecosystems. So, and most of the time you're part of a cohort with other entities as well. So you actually get to grow your network, get to grow your business acumen, get to get a bit of capital for your business to do more and more things and increase your runway, and hopefully actually raise as much as you're trying to raise. So I highly recommend, but I only recommend like one or two, like what we've done, and then sort of capping it off at that, because you never want to be a career accelerator program individual, because then even your investors will be like, are these guys going to launch? So at some point, you have to be like, okay, thanks, I've got the knowledge, now let me hit the ground running. So, but the accelerator programs, I think, are definitely there for the taking. Even if you are Zimbabwean, don't be scared of the ZWL or anything like that. If you have the idea, it's scalable. And it's a serious problem, a serious pain point, and Africa's got problems galore. Take them to the world and see if the world can help you solve those problems.
For you, like, what was the process? If you constantly changed, like how your business is like from time to time?
Yeah, I mean, look, from day one, if you saw what we were trying to do with my partner, call this 18 months ago, if you had conversations with us, we were looking for normal private equity funding. We were trying to build 100 houses at one go and build a village. That was how the idea started. And that's how it shopped around to a lot of people at the time. And from there, we've iterated and changed. At that point, we weren't actually tech, to be honest. And we figured out, it's better to make this efficient, better to do this and do that. So your only advantage as a startup, and if anyone takes anything away from this interview, it's this: is you have the ability to adapt and iterate fast. That is your advantage as a startup. And so you need to be always changing. The moment you stop changing your model and iterating and getting better and better is the moment you're just a company. You're not a startup anymore. So for us, we've changed since, like I'm saying, from the beginning. The model is unrecognizable if you look where we came from and where we are now. And we're continuing to do that. Week in, week out, we're looking at different ways of iterating just how we're doing our scoring, iterating how we're helping our clients, both the businesses and the customer, iterating how product market fit is and how to maintain a client. So these are all things that, one, you can learn on your own, but you really have to get down to it, and learn hard. And also some accelerator programs teach you these kind of things of how to understand and how to experiment as well. So yeah.
Wow, that's beautiful. And I mean, you mentioned that you have a co-founder, right? Like you started this with a friend. So how is the process? I mean, I'm so sure there are points where you have some disagreements, you have something in your thoughts, you share with them, they disagree, or maybe they share with you some thoughts and you disagree, and they really want to push this so that you can make that change. So how is that like? How does that? Do you often go through those kind of situations as Tigere?
I mean, I wouldn't say often, but yes, we definitely go through them. And we actually have a culture of that. So it's also important for startups to start a culture. I know us as Africans, sometimes we're like, what exactly is this? What does it mean? No, it's very important to have an actual corporate culture for your startup, or some sort of culture. And ours is that question everything. To say, okay, why are we doing this? Why? And the way we deal with it is actually to put it almost on a scale of who is more passionate about this particular problem or issue we're having. And we then move forward by saying, okay, if you're more passionate about it, I can see you seem to care more. Let's go with what you're saying. If it doesn't work, we don't have an I told you so attitude. We also make sure we don't have that. We don't have now you see confidence. No, we don't. We don't do that. We're just like, okay, you have said you're more passionate about this. You stood your ground more than me. Let us go with what you're saying, and let's see. So we allow ourselves room to experiment and kind of slack to hang ourselves. But okay, let's go your way. But it's based on who's more passionate. That's the first way we deal with it. The second way is we're very good at saying what's in whose lane. Saying, okay, you do this, I'm doing this, and so and with that we have a lot of trust. It's just saying, sure, do your job, I'll do mine. And so we trust each other a lot and we don't overlap. That's also how we avoid fights, in that we know what's in. So that's also quick. It's good for startup founders to define that for each other as well. Like, what's your key role, what's mine, so that we don't overlap and start, fighting. So even similarly, because we've got a small team, we've got social media team, we've got a small marketing team, we've got our tech team as well, and we assign who talks to who. So we'll be in all the same groups, but meetings and things will be led by us. We split up who's leading what, just to avoid that kind of confrontation. So yeah.
Wow, that reminds me of something that I was taught. Also, that you should fail fast and be bold. Like most people, they get stuck at trying to make something that does not work. To make it work, you just need to find out if this works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So and a great takeaway that I took from you, not having the I told you so attitude. I feel like personally for me also, through my startup with the co-founder that I have, there's sometimes that I told you so. Wakaita nalo. So yeah. I do understand. And Vusa, what are you looking to achieve as Tigere, let's say probably in the next 5 to 10 years? What is at the top of your priorities as a company?
So I'm going to say this as a response, also adding on to what you said in the last question. You said failing fast. And one thing I've learned is, as a founder, fall in love with the problem you're solving, not with your solution. And I'll say it again, fall in love with the problem, not with your solution. And so that you understand what the problem is really, so you can really build your solution to meet it. And so for us, when it comes to achieving, we're looking at what the problems are. And for us, they're twofold. One is people without housing. That's a big problem. And so we're hoping to touch, millions of lives within the next 5 to 10 years across the country, across the continent, rather, to help them gain access to, their first kind of loan for housing finance. So when I say millions, I really do mean millions, because the housing deficit just in our target country is 15 million. So we're hoping to at least have done, 1 to 2 million, at least, individuals who've run through our platform and taken out a loan. And we think that is possible. And then secondly is to just credit score, over 5 to 10 million people. Have these individuals actually joining the financial inclusion ecosystem, actually having a way to document the salaries that they're earning that can just benefit them. We're offering people the carrot and not the stick. We're not saying give us your data so you can be taxed, but give us your data so that one day an institution can say, hey, let's actually help Africoina and give them a small business loan. Let's do this, let's do that, because you're actually visible. So, those are the two things we're truly trying to achieve: financial inclusion and poverty alleviation, as well as helping people build their first home. Because as you mentioned earlier, a home is very important in Africa. And we believe, and in Zim, most of the times people, the only thing they leave their children is a home. And so it is a critical part of someone's legacy in Africa, a very critical part. We want to just help you make that first step out of poverty.
Wow, that's brilliant. That's brilliant words from you. And just to come back to the startup itself. So far, how much funding have you raised as a funding? Have you raised any funding?
Yeah, we have. So we've raised a mixture of grant and equity funding, which is about $55,000 to date, which has given us runway. So now we've been able to run for the next 4 to 5 months on that. And currently we are raising $750,000.
Wow. Bro, I feel so proud to be African right now, talking to a very wonderful startup founder like you. And I believe you can do it. And I can't wait to see you guys reach those goals that you are currently working on. There's a startup that I worked with some years back. I think it was back in 2019 from Nigeria. It's called House Africa. I don't know if you've heard about it before. But a few months ago, they raised about 400,000. They are also into housing, but they are kind of doing a different model. And I believe that that's going to be possible for you guys. And I can't wait to see you get to that stage. We'll always be following up with you throughout your journey. And thank you very much for taking much of your time to speak with me. And we'll catch up with you probably 6 months or a year from now and find out like what you guys will be up to. But if you are watching this, we've been speaking to the founder of Tigere Housing, which is a startup in Zimbabwe, and they are currently doing a lot of work. And if you are interested in getting a loan to finance your house, so just make sure you visit their website. It's tigere.co.zw, right?
Tigere Housing.co.zw.
Tigere Housing. Okay, I'll include it in the video. And it's been awesome speaking to you. We hope you go through that accelerator that you're going through wonderfully, and we can't wait to see you do more wonderful stuff for the African people. Thank you very much, Fusa.